Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Christmas Christmas Day Eve edition of some random stuff that sold recently. And this one is past 2 weeks-ish, and it doesn't include everything that sold. I tried to make it a little thematic with things that are either BOLOs or are just weird and thus interesting, and things that I'm kind of surprised sold just because I didn't know if they would, or I'm kind of surprised sold as single items rather than a lot. Various, sort of experiments. So here we go. The first item is this model train part, and this is an electrical part. Actually, I'm not totally sure what it does, to be honest, but it's a BEMF decoder designed for N-scale locomotives equipped with 6-pin inline socket. And this is the actual part in here. I got this at an estate sale of a model train hobbyist aficionado, along with tons of other model train bits and pieces. And I do find that these sell pretty well, some things better than others. I looked up comps on these type of things, and this specific kind of BEMF decoder, and they actually go for quite a lot. So I priced it high in hopes that it would do well, and it in fact sold for $30. It's new old stock. So this is a BOLO model train bits, be they electrical or not. Okay, next. This is a keychain. It's a St. Christopher religious medal. It's like this sort of 70s style keychain with that claspy thing that they used to use a lot. And it's pretty small. It's like 3/4 of an inch, but it's kind of cool. It's like got this enamel 3D under the enamel effect and the nice red color. This sold for $8, and it's another BOLO, religious, not just religious medals, but even little good luck token keychain things like this sell pretty well. Maybe not for a bazillion dollars, but they sell, especially if they look cool. I think this one looks cool. Anyway, next. Excuse me. This falls in the sort of surprised it sold category. This is a box of black tea scented bath soap from Italy, and to be perfectly honest with you, I found this in my bookcase. I think somebody must have given it to me as a gift. I don't know how long ago, but I really don't do scented soaps. I tend to be allergic to smelly stuff. So apparently I stuffed it in my bookcase somewhere, and I just came upon it the other day, and I thought, huh. And rather than throw it away or donate it somewhere, I decided to list it, and it did in fact sell for full price of $12.50, and it didn't take too long. So that's a surprise that sold item. Next one. Okay, this is the next two items are both jewelry that was purchased by the same person. This is a vintage, sprig of flowers of pretty pink berry cabochon thingies. And the other one is this owl pin that is also rhinestones and cabochon green eyeballs. So it's kind of interesting. This person has a taste for those glowy half dome shiny things. I can understand that. And these two items together sold for $44 plus shipping. Next. I'm sorry. Someday I will not have bronchitis. This is in the category of both bolo and interesting that it's sold, though I kind of knew this would eventually sell. So this is a lot of 158 slides from the China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Bangkok, Thailand, that is, from the 70s. And as you can see, they're kind of okay photos. The color is pretty drained in some of them, and they're by no means professional or even, what we would call traditionally good photographs, but they are an interesting picture of these places at that time. When I listed these, I did some research by digging through for places that appeared to be that look like landmarks, and then figuring out with Google where those landmarks are, and then I could tell that this is Hong Kong Harbor, I believe, and some of them are Thailand, definitely. There's one of them, that's definitely Thailand, and so forth. So anyway, there's a whole ton of these, and so slides tend to be good, especially if you can figure out what they are, lot them appropriately, and give them keywords that are meaningful. There are other slides that sell better, like Kodachrome slides that are really nice saturated color and don't fade, or slides that are older, like these are 78, but ones from the 50s or 60s would have done better. Hong Kong is a great place for interest in slides, or China in general. So yeah, and the story with these is that I got them in a lot. Oh, it's like not last summer, but the summer before, in a little tiny antique mall place in Maine, and it was this lot of 3 full metal cases of slides and about a dozen full carousels of slides, along with a projector and I think some other assorted accessories. And that whole lot was $25. So I went through all the slides and I grouped them. They were sort of labeled loosely by location or by this couple's trips. So I think they went to a number of countries on some trips, so it was a little bit vague. But I could kind of figure out by the language that signs were in and stuff, or landmarks, as I was saying, or just taking a wild guess based on the labels. Like they had some that were labeled North Africa, and I could kind of tell it was probably Morocco or Tunisia, versus Egypt and stuff like that. Anyway, so I grouped them in lots, and also I picked out maybe 10%, 15% to list as singles and sell individually, or a few in small groups. Like if they're, for example, there were some shots of a snake charmer charming a snake, and there were 3 of a sequence of action. So I listed those together as a little lot. And on the whole, these slides are almost gone. I think I have a few lots left of the least desirable or least interesting ones, probably, kind of mid-Europe, like Switzerland, and just kind of unidentifiable country roads and stuff. So they've mostly sold, and I'll talk about the singles later, but most of the lots have been, like around this price. Let's see what this sold for. Yeah, this lot sold for the full list price of $42.50, and that's about average for these lots. I think some were more, some were less, and some had more like 200 slides or 250 slides or whatever. And this person who bought these was in the UK, and so they paid shipping on top of that. So all in, they paid $67.50. So I thought that was a pretty good deal, and definitely an excellent return on investment for this $25 slide purchase. Though it has taken a while, like I said, it was 2 summers ago at this point, and a lot of them sold quickly, and the rest have just been sort of sitting around selling slowly. So that's my spiel and my bolo for like old people vacation slides. Can you imagine them like inviting their friends over for swanky cocktails and showing these slides of their vacation? Hundreds of them. Yeah. Okay, next. This is another like surprised it's sold. Just alone without a lot. This is just a business card. It's probably from, I don't know, between 1900 and 1920. And I just found it in a box of various and sundry papers of some sort, probably from an auction. And I really thought it was hilarious because this man's name is Blumpy. And me and my significant other use Blumpy as a made up adjective, generally to describe lazy bulldogs, like literally in the dog park. As in, huh, look at that Blumpy bulldog over there. I wonder if he'll get up and play. That sort of thing. So, anyway, I thought this was a great business card, and I listed it on eBay, and it sold for my full asking price of $12.50 plus shipping. So, old business cards, yeah. And this is not, it's not exciting paper. It doesn't have anything on the back, but there you go. And I think the person who bought it was from this town, Newburyport, if I recall correctly. So, or something, or maybe they're related to the Blumpies. I don't know. I hope so. That would be cool. Next. This is a World's Fair item from the 33 World's Fair in Chicago, and it's actually just a sort of middle of the road paper brochure here. But there's two things that are cool about it. One is that it was actually produced before the World's Fair, showing what it's going to be like. And I don't know, I just thought that was kind of interesting. It's very ephemeral. Like, it's the kind of thing you get through your mailbox in your neighborhood saying, like, oh, we're building this thing over here. Here's what it's going to look like. Come to a meeting to discuss. I don't know. It just struck home as a very real kind of piece of ephemera. But the other thing that's cool about it is that when it folds out, there's this panoramic artist rendering of what the World's Fair will look like, and it has this super cool blimp in it, which I really liked. So I feel like it's got that futuristic feel that they go for with World's Fairs in this drawing from 1933. And this brochure is in like not great condition. It has this junk on the back, and it is just like a little paper brochure, but it's sold for $10, so that's pretty good. Next. Okay, this is a book, obviously, and I picked this up at a library book sale. I went there intending to perhaps scan books for Amazon FBA, but it was a very small space in the old like Victorian library, and there were all these scanner dudes there with their when the guys who have the scanners velcroed to their arm, and they're like going zip 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 with the headphones and the beep beep and the whatever, and they were making huge piles everywhere of things they wanted to get or to rescan or whatever. Hold on. And I just couldn't deal with it. It was just too, they were being so rude, and it was upsetting the like book sale ladies, and it was upsetting the people who were shopping. And I didn't want to join their ranks. So I just like actually looked at books like a normal human, and like looked at things that interested me and stuff like that. Um, and I was looking at this book because it interested me because I like Bauhaus design. Uh, and is also a cool book. It's like, so it's, the paper is Japanese folded. You can't really tell that from here, but what it means is that instead of the pages being the loose end, the page is folded in half, and then the fold part is the loose end, and then it's bound on all the pagey, floppy parts. So, and it's a Japanese binding style, and usually it's used with string or thread to bind it in a simple or elaborate pattern on the edge, on this edge. But in this case, they use bolts to bind the book, because it's about, an industrial influence design style. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I thought that I might keep this book, but when I looked at it more at home, it didn't really bear keeping forever. And it's also, I realized it was produced by the company Knoll, who they're furniture makers, and it's more about the influence of Bauhaus design after the actual movement was over, like what it spawned later. So that's not super interesting to me, like, more than one pass through. So I listed on eBay. Picked this up for $4, and it's sold within a couple days for $18.50 plus shipping. And yeah, turned out to be pretty good deal. Okay, next. Okay, this falls under the just weird and kind of funny category. Matzo ball, salt and pepper shakers. So I picked these up at Goodwill because they made me laugh when I saw them. And they're just like absurd. And I don't know, they probably cost $1.99 or maybe 99 cents or something. I forget, but Goodwill. And they they were up for a couple months, and they sold around Hanukkah time for $15 plus shipping. So that was fun. Okay, next. Oh, this also falls in the weird category. This is a very large, very heavy double wizard candle. So the deal here is this. These two wizards are made of wax, and they each have a wick in their head, in their hood, their wizard hood, and they are jointly holding this wishbone. And presumably, the point is that you light them both on fire and they melt, and then one wins the bigger part of the wishbone as they disintegrate into wizard puddles of wax on the ground. This was made by this guy, Ken Reichman. Oh, no, it was built by elves under the design of Ken Reichman, who is apparently a wizard candle master of some sort. And I believe these are, in fact, from the 70s or maybe early 80s. And they took about 7 or 8 months to sell, looking for their special wizard candle new owner. And they sold for $30 plus shipping, and the shipping was quite expensive because they're very heavy and quite fragile, and they were one of those rare packing jobs that just makes me a little nervous and involved a lot of careful padding. Anyway, the wizards are off to the West Coast for $30. Next, this is a bolo item. So I find that these mid-century tool catalogs, especially these industrial or machine tools or sort of electric table type tools, sell really well. This one is somewhat less spectacular than some, in that it's in rough condition and, well, it's actually not that bad. I think the back cover, yeah, the back cover is kind of messed up. This sold for $10 and it was listed for a while, but I also had a lot of other ones that were better that sold quicker and sold before it. So definitely a BOLO. Yeah, these Delta Milwaukee catalogs sell really well. Also manuals from around the same period for these kind of tools. And sometimes also in this box here where it says sold by and then there's nothing, that's where individual hardware stores or sellers could put their info, and I've actually sold them because of the name in that box sometimes, like to someone with the same last name or whatever. So that's something to be on the lookout for as well. All right. Next, this is a Mack truck Bulldog guy. I don't know if I'd call him Blumpy or not. Probably not. He looks pretty muscled. But I think this is a metal or something that would hang on a ribbon or a tab. Not sure on what, but doesn't really matter. And it has stuff on the back, and it's about 1.5 inches. And, it's vintage to some degree. And I got it at an estate sale for, I think, $1, along with some other Mack stuff. So this may have sold to a truck person or a Bulldog person. Yeah, I was going to say, or like a random weird metals person, but that's probably not it. Yeah, and it sold for asking price of $18.50. It was listed for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months. So Mack truck stuff, I think, is a good BOLO. Next, these are some mid-century modern plastic stacking trays, and they are nice bright mid-century colors, and they're like, for cocktails, like cocktail party appetizers, I guess is the word, or something like that. I don't know what they're for. They're like 8 by 5-ish and black on the back. So, and they're in really good condition, except there's a mark on this one orange one, which I noted. Anyway, these guys sold for asking price of $22.50. They were probably up for 9 months, maybe. So that was fun. I got these for free. There you go. Next, this is an individual slide that sold. And so in the category of like, interesting that that sold by itself. Like, check this out. It's a really poor picture. But it is identifiable, or I figured out where it was. Anyway, it's it's a photo taken from the harbor in Hong Kong. I think from a ferry or a tourist boat or something. And in it, you can see the Rolex building with a sign, and also the Rolly building with a sign, and these signs in Chinese that I don't know what they say. So it's like very identifiable and has some, brands with followings in it, and it's a faded slide and a, mediocre picture, but it did sell. I took an offer of $5 on it because it was going to France and they were going to have to pay $14-ish or more shipping, and I sort of felt bad because it's just a slide. So I took an offer of $5, and that sold. A lot of individual slides did sell for more than that. Generally, like from this lot, and I want to say, like, I think they mostly sold for like $8 to $15. There were a few really cool ones from Hong Kong that were like street views of really dense alleys with lots and lots of signage and markets and stuff, and those sold for the most. Okay, next. Excuse me. It's where my bronchitis is getting better. It's just not gone yet. So this is a piece of slightly vintage, or reasonably vintage accessor craft signed costume jewelry. It's a necklace. It looks like this, and I use the keyword minimalist because it is. It's just a rectangle, but I guess that's what makes it cool. It's on a chain with some beads. It's signed. It's got this fancy beadwork stuff, and this sold for $12, which is fair enough. And I believe I got this at an estate sale for, like, I want to say 25 cents, maybe. Yeah. So signed costume jewelry, often good, even if it seems kind of plain, like so. Next. Oh, this is a cool item. So this is a, it's the Cuthbert's Verb wheel. And what the deal is with this is that it's like just a square of cardboard with a circle of cardboard riveted to it, and there's some die cuts here and here in this circle. So as you spin it around, there's verbs on the outside edge. Let's see if I can show you on a closer one. And they line up at the bottom. So like here is like bring, brought, bringing. So we have the 4 present tense, past tense, past something, and the gerund. And then when you have that lined up, it also shows you, oh, this is for did. I kept spinning it when I was taking pictures, but it will show you the past indicative in the little window and the present indicative in this window, and it gives you all this information about how verbs work in English and like auxiliary verbs, and there's other little windows that show you more things, and you can spin it around and get all the information about all these verbs. And I think if you are learning English, this would be awesome because English verbs are totally wacko and very irregular and spelled funny. So I thought this was really cool, and it's from the 30s, I figured out with some research. It's in pretty good condition, though it does have a few little issues, like there's some gunk stuff, rip on the back, and so forth. But anyway, this sold for $12, and I don't remember how long it was up, maybe 6 months. So that's another cool, interesting item. Okay, this is kind of a bolo, but not really. Actually, I don't know what category this is in. This is in random flower basket category. So this style of porcelain is a thing. It's English. It's bone china, and it's characterized by this woven strands, basketry, and these super delicate flowers that are really kind of scary to ship, applied on. And then there's sometimes this like gold leafing business on them as well. And see, like there's this woven porcelain in here. And I think one of the more famous makers of these is called Colport, like C-O-A-L, port. But there's others. I think like every little English tourist porcelain place made these. And so this is just a little basket thing, purely decorative. Well, I guess you could put something in it, like some candied nuts. And this one is signed, but I actually didn't bother to figure out what it says. It looks like Varley or Marley or something, but I figured knowing it was English Bone China was good enough, because I knew it wasn't worth a ton. So and I had a whole bunch of these from estate sale leftovers that some were signed, some weren't. I didn't stress about it too much. Um, so yeah, that's how it's marked, and it's like not very big. It's like 5 inches. Um, anyway, point being that if you can get these for practically nothing, they will sell eventually. I mean, I sold a bunch of them. People collect them, and they won't sell for a ton, and they're kind of a pain to ship, but they are kind of a thing that you can look for. This sold for, oh, it sold for $32.57, which that weird number probably means, yeah, it does mean that I did an offer to watchers and gave them like a 10% discount, and it was probably 34 something full price. So they accepted the offer and and paid $32.57. So yeah, these woven porcelain bone china English flower basket things, kind of a bolo. Next. This is more of my weird electrical stuff I pick up when I see it. This is a kind of vintage printed circuit repair and modification kit. It's probably from like the 80s, and it's new old stock though. It has, all its bits, and it looks like it originally sold for like $15. So it sold here for $16.50 and cost me, pennies in a bulk lot, like literally. And so yeah, I like these weird electrical bits. I don't know why, but they keep me entertained and they sell well. Next, oh, I think last time I talked about vintage wrapping paper. Uh, Very easy to get for cheap at estate sales, and it seems like I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but it does seem like most old ladies who die do leave behind a stash of wrapping paper. It's just a thing. Um, and anyway, this one is it's like new old stock. It's and it's wrap, and it's by Current, and it's the Victorian Nosegays pattern. It's this sold really fast actually. It was like up for, it sold the day I listed it. I think probably somebody had an alert set for violets, perhaps. I don't know. Because people do like violets, and it's pretty wrapping paper, I guess. People buy old wrapping paper, I presume, for wrapping or also for card making and scrapbooking and other crafts. I mean, if you think about it, it's a cheap source of interesting printed paper that isn't mass produced. It's not like, you go to Michael's or some craft store and they have like a set number of these mass produced papers that everyone's getting. But if you buy vintage wrapping paper, you have something different. So that's cool. And this sold for $8 plus shipping. Next. Oh, here's a bolo. I sold a bunch of records in the past couple weeks, but this one I think will count as a bolo. So Abbott and Costello, pretty easy to look for, like as in it's something that's still kind of current. Well, not current, something that still exists in the cultural zeitgeist, so you can remember the name, Abbott and Costello, and not super rare. I mean, I think I actually have 2 of these for sale, and this actually, it didn't sell for $62.50 though. I took an offer of $25 on it, because why not? And yeah, I think this is a good one to look for. Oh, it's a 78 shellac record. So Abbott and Costello, thing to look for. next. This is in the category of I'm surprised it sold on its own, not in a lot. So this is just a single greeting card, and I was doing lots of greeting cards that day, and this one didn't really fit with the other ones because they were all like peanuts or Valentine's or something really specific, and this one was just like super hippie. Like it's so iconic of its era. Like look at this. It's like got that avocado kitchen appliance green background, and then like kind of clashy neon-y colors that don't really go with it, and just like these jars of like good times. It's just so hippie and like so, I don't know. It's like something you buy at the register at the health food store in 1970 or something. Not that I was alive then, but that is my impression. Anyway, so this is just a Christmas card, and it's used. It's not written in, but somebody's like custom card, and their name's printed in there. And yeah, somebody actually bought this for full asking price, so that's cool. Good to know. Next, in the kind of weird category, this is a small band of wooden nuns. Like literally a band. So they're really tiny. They're like less than an inch tall, I think, and they're just like super simple construction. And we got like a drum nun and bass nun and harp nun and conductress nun and lute nun and piano nun. I think that's all of them. And yeah, they're just like little guys or ladies. And one of them's missing an arm, and they're kind of like cruddy, like they're one of those crafts that was done sloppily, so there's glue blobs and stuff. But like, how often do you find a set of oh, they're like 2 inches, but like a little wooden band of nuns. So anyway, I don't know where I got these, like just in the bottom of some box at some estate sale, and I was like, oh look, little nuns, and I, grabbed them and put them in some huge lot of stuff. So these sold for $17.25, which again means I did an offer to watchers, and so they got a small discount on the full price of $18.50. And these were up for a few months, 3 maybe less, maybe 2. I don't know. Okay, next. Here's another thing that's specific and slightly weird that it sold on its own, but not that weird. So this is a Christmas card that is from this specific Coast Guard cutter, the Yakutat or something along those lines. And the deal with this is it's like a pre-printed card, and then they've stuck in a black and white photograph of the boat with the sailors on it. And this is a used Christmas card. It's Love Dan or Dawn, and it's probably from 60s, 50s. Could go a few ways, but I don't know why my pictures are so blurry. I apologize. Anyway, this is a thing that was specific enough that if somebody served on this boat or their father served on this boat or whatever, it would be of interest just for the photo alone, even if the card wasn't of interest. And this sold for $12, and it was just I got it in a huge lot of cards, like huge, 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 that I've been parceling out in different lots and singles and stuff. Okay, next. This is I guess we call this a bolo, though it's awfully specific. But this is a postcard from like around the turn of the century of the Granby Smelter in Grand Forks, British Columbia, and it's got this like sort of optical illusion trompe l'oeil wood frame, and then this cyanotype type printed picture. It's not a real photo postcard, and it's this smelter and the little like series of factory buildings and stuff around it and the train tracks. Presumably, this is long gone. I can't remember if I researched it in detail. But anyway, I priced this really high for me, $54.50, and it did sell for that price to someone in Canada who thus paid lots and lots of shipping on top of it. So there were like $69.75 all in. And it's, I don't know, I guess I'm just showing this because it reaffirms my faith that some postcards do in fact sell for a lot and are rare and are worth a lot. And here's the back. So yeah, that looks like 1907 postmark maybe. And it's going to Mrs. F.H. Richardson. For a second I thought it said H.H. Richardson and I was going to freak out because that's a famous architect. But yeah, that's just me being weird. He's probably dead by 1907 anyway. But yeah, so have faith in your rare and unusual postcards, my friends. I guess is my point here. Next. Here's another thing that I was surprised sold really fast. This sold within hours of listing, and it's just an old program for a Boston Pops concert in 1970. I believe it was 1970. Like a benefit concert with Ella Fitzgerald and Arthur Fiedler conducting the Pops. It's just a theater program. There's Ella in quite a bit of glory. And it's not in the best condition, but it's not too bad. And somebody bought this really fast. Like they maybe had an alert set up for Ella Fitzgerald, and this was a kind of a rare, unusual item for their collection or some such. I have no idea. But this is from a lot. I got an estate sale of a former like Hollywood and Broadway theater costume designer. And I mean, mostly what was cool about that sale was there were tons of vintage clothes and costumes, but I wasn't really in the market for those because I don't like selling that stuff particularly. And so I just dug around in the basement and the corners and the boxes and found what I could find in terms of theater and movie ephemera. And I did come up with, I got some press kits for a bunch of like Disney films from the 80s and various things. Like nothing earth-shattering, but it was worth digging around. Like I did find some cool stuff. And amongst it, I picked up some unusual theater programs and magazines. Like most theater programs, like those Playbill ones, don't do well. Like even in a huge lot, like they're just so plentiful. They're not good sellers. But if I find something that's weird, like Ella Fitzgerald in her, later years, that's cool. I mean, that's kind of unusual. So pick that up. And that sold for $15. Okay, next. This is just a little atomic style mid-century pin. Probably shouldn't have photographed it so close, but it's tiny. It's like 3/4 of an inch or so, or 48/64. That's my ruler says. It's a little pin, and it's got this like very iconic mid-century starburst atomic design. So that's sold for $12.50, and I think it's a bolo. I mean, not this particular pin, but just this shape in general, or shapes like it, are good sellers. Next. Here's something in the odd that it's sold on its own category, or like reassuring that it's sold on its own. This is a Valentine. It's a mechanical one that has some moving parts, like the camera. She lifts the camera and her eyes move. So let's see. In this one, like you can kind of get it. Be better if I had like corrected the white balance in this photo, but you know, you get the idea. Her eyes move and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this is little, and the back's all screwed up. It's like got glue and writing and stuff. But it is really cute, and it is from the 30s. And it did sell for $9.50. And it's not near Valentine's Day. But I think, you know, this has appeal to photographers. It's a like recognizable sort of brownie box camera and stuff. It's cute. And yeah, this is another kind of experiment. Like I have tons of old Valentines from the 30s and 40s, and do I list them as lots? Do I list them as singles? Hard to say. So I've, you know, been experimenting, and they sell very slowly, but I find that cute ones like this do sell. So that's interesting research. Next. Okay, this is a book in Lithuanian. It is, it was printed during World War II by some sort of part of the U.S. Army. Yeah, 3rd U.S. Army Headquarters, APO. I don't know why. I really don't know what the story is here. But it's like a folktale book in Lithuanian, and it has kind of cool graphic illustrations in 2 colors of teal and brown. I don't know, it's kind of interesting looking. This book is in terrible shape. It's like got foxing and fading, and the binding's all screwed up, and the cover's all screwed up. But it's not very common, and it's very specific. Presumably somebody who reads Lithuanian or was stationed at that post or knows what the deal is bought this. It sold for $15. Okay, this this is another like, oh, that sells sort of item. This is an ad from 1970 it was from a McCall's magazine, I believe. And it's big, it's full page, and it's for Sears Klingalon thigh top hosiery thigh highs. Like, try saying that. Klingalon thigh top. Like, who came up with that name? That's terrible. Like, what kind of ad agency makes things you can't even say? But anyway, you know, it's just an ad for these elastic band stay up thigh highs. And you know, it's this very 70s sexy lady here. I don't know, she might even be a famous model or not, I don't know. But this ad sold for $9.50. So there you go. Like, I don't usually post ads this new, but I had some McCall's magazines from the 70s, and some of them I just posted as is, and this one was like, the cover was ripped or something. I don't know. It wasn't worth selling, and so I cut out some ads that seemed vaguely interesting in some way, and this one sold from Sears. This is a little notebook from the 20s. It's like an advertising piece from the Syracuse Rendering Company, and it has the 1922 calendar on the inside cover. And this poor slobbering cow or bull who's going to be rendered into poultry food or something. Poor guy over here, but it's kind of a cool illustration. And that's the cover. It's very faded. And somebody's used it as like a tally book of some sort, or like bookkeeping or record keeping. And it's got like more information about the Syracuse products in it and stuff like that. Bone meal, blah, blah, blah. That's the back. So it's in rough shape, but it's kind of got that shabby chic appeal, I guess. And I don't know. Somebody bought it for full price of $24.50. I don't remember if they were from Syracuse or not, but you know, it has a few things going for it. The whole, animal feeds angle and the specific company and the specific town and the 1922 calendar. So that was that. Next, this is the next two. Speaking of farm items, says 2 issues of Farm Journal went to the same person. This one with a kid in a pot, and this one with a kid eating a stamp, I think. But anyway, these are both World War II era. The magazine is Farm Journal and Farmer's Wife, so something for everyone. And they have some really cool ads in them, and it's very World War II era. The new meat plan, so forth. So, that looks so toxic, whatever that is. But these sold for a total of $24 plus shipping for the 2 issues. So yeah, it's a magazine I'd never sold before, and I had a couple issues and they sold. So good to know. Next we have, here's a bunch of maybe marks, but probably not figures. I think some are marked NPC, and they're knockoffs mostly of marks. Maybe a few are real. And they're mostly like the same guys. There's a lot of duplicates. Like I kind of grouped them together so you can see that. And they're not all from one set or anything like that. So these have been listed for some time. And I took an offer of $14.34 plus shipping. I think I threw this in here because what's interesting is that if you have these guys, these vintage soldiers or cowboys or whatever, and they're not marks, they're not marked marks or some other brand, but you want to express what they are in the title, it's like eBay zaps you sometimes if you say marks like or marks-esque or like marks or anything like that. And for whatever reason, this wording worked. I mean, I'm not trying to pull one over on eBay. It's just how else do you describe these? They're Marks knockoffs, They're not like illegal knockoffs. It's not like a Louis Vuitton knockoff or something. It's just, cheap toys based on a popular type. Anyway, so this wording, Marks NPC or similar, got by the robot algorithmic censor program. So I just thought that was good to know because that's a problem that comes up sometimes when you're trying to describe something that's unbranded. So these, did I say that? These sold for $14.34. Yeah. This is interesting because, don't look at that part. This is a newspaper called The Stage that to all appearances looks like it's from 1866, and it's advertising Mr. Edwin Booth, the famous actor in Hamlet. Looks like this. But if you look at this closely, you will see, and you can kind of get the sense from the quality of the printing, actually, this like fake aging. But you'll see, if you look closely, that this is actually a reproduction that was created in 1936 of this 1866 original. So it's still cool, and it's still old, but it's not 1866, and it's not from, that real time. So yeah, it's quite yellowed, and so just be careful when it seems a little too good to be true, like it's in too good condition and it's a little too crispy, like you got some really famous actor in a really famous play and you just have found it in a lot of junk. Just double check, because this does say right on it that it's from 1936. Yeah, and this like fake aging is a total giveaway. It's like people do that today so much in graphic design, like the fake gritty age technique. And look, they were even doing it back in the 30s. So, yep. So that, but this still sold, and it sold for $24.50, and it's not in perfect condition either. It's very brittle, but it's a cool piece. Next, back to my weird electrical thing. So these are wire wrap prototyping boards, though apparently they're not actually, because they should have pegs in the holes. So these are some kind of specific boards actually that go in some specific hardware. Like you see these pins at the bottom, like that's to plug into something. I don't know what, but they're oldish and they are heavy, and I got them at an estate of an electrical engineer, and they took quite a while to sell, but when they did, they sold well. I actually had promoted listings turned on these for some reason. Like I've tried to turn that off on everything, but I didn't do a very thorough job because I think we have mostly decided that that is a bit of a scam from our friend eBay. But anyway, so this sold with a promoted listing, and but they still sold for $122.15, and I think they shipped to, I feel like it was the Far East somewhere, but I forget. But altogether, the buyer paid $155, so it was somewhere far away. And these are quite heavy as well. So yeah, weird electrical stuff. Gotta love it. Next, this is a game from the 40s. This has been like reproduced many times in many eras, I believe, of famous authors. It's a card game. Comes in a box. It has cards and instructions, and this is in pretty good shape, but somebody had put some tape on the box and written on it, and it was the kind of like old super sticky tape that if I peeled it off it would have taken the paper underneath with it, so I left it. But the cards are in nice shape, and I don't know, it was a good addition. Like I like these illustrations. So these sold for full price, I think. Yeah, $24.50. And they were listed for quite some time. Next, oh, this is in the weird category. Okay, this is a girdle with embroidered dancers on it. I don't know why, but they're cool. Look, they're like weird rainbow pastel, like impressionistic dancers on a girdle with garter belt. So yeah, and so this was marked small, but it was really small. So I thought it might be for a teen, or just, I guess, people were smaller, had smaller waists back then, perhaps, or healthier. Yeah, this is just a really weird vintage item. And I got this when I was selling a lot more vintage clothing, which I have tapered off with, but I kept this because it was small and weird and I liked it. And this sold for $40. And it took a long time, like a year, to find that person who would need and love it. So yeah. Teen girdle. Lastex and nylon. Yep. Next. I do believe this is the last item I put in here. So this is a book, again, from a World's Fair, from the World's Columbian Exposition in 1893. And this book, it's like this cardboard cover with a string binding, and it's like a picture book of the exhibit. It's printed, they're photogravures, but they're albertypes, which is a particular kind of way of printing. It's like it has to do with the shape of the printing dots and the way they're laid down. That's not that exciting, but they are albertypes, and they've got this kind of cool blue tint and this very Belle Epoque typography. So, yeah, look at that. That's so 1890s. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, and the back cover was a little ripped, but it overall it was in decent shape, and this sold for $24.69, which again I think probably means I sent out an offer for like some kind of discount, or maybe the person just offered me a weird price and I took it. I don't remember. Um, World's Fair stuff. It's usually pretty good. The more unusual and less mass produced, the better. But people do collect from the different World's Fairs, especially like 1893 is a good one. That was a good year, man. Yeah. So I think that's the end. Yeah. And thank you for bearing with me with my respiratory illness, which I hope to conquer soon. And until then, and until I make the next what sold last week video and hope it's actually from an actual week, thank you for watching. Hope you learned something useful or got some ideas of things to look for, and have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.